Hey everyone, my name is James Black. I'm with the Canadian Securities Exchange, and welcome to the first ever CSE Presents Tech Tuesday. I'm really excited for this event. We've been working on this for a while, since we've been at home for the last 4 months, and I couldn't do it without my friends at the CSE. That includes my colleague, Mark Francis, and I'll ask Mark to join us today because he is your moderator. So Mark, thank you for joining us. Thank you for putting this together with our colleague, Grace. You're already out in Calgary. How are things, and how are you doing?
Well, we're doing well here, and we're able to have burgers and beer on a patio. So we are going to run about 45 minutes today. So I'm going to dive into this. Welcome to the Premier CSE Tech Tuesday session, and thank you for joining us. We will be running every Tuesday, starting 15 minutes after market close, with 3 private companies each session, except for the first Tuesday of the month, when we will host 1 or 2 CSE listed tech companies. We expect to have companies in various stages of development from North America and abroad. Next week, we will have non-invasive medical devices, Kent Imaging, Forest Devices, and AutoNexus. Our objective in running Tech Tuesdays is twofold. First, to help technology companies with increasing traction to gain relevant visibility. And second, to help capital markets players by introducing interesting companies, focusing on whether their technology will have commercial traction and why, and also providing new knowledge of what is happening in innovation. Note our disclaimer. This presentation is for information only and is not a solicitation to make an investment in either shares or debt, or to buy or sell stock. CSE and Mark Francis, as session host, i.e. yours truly, make no representation about any of these companies. If you are interested in the investor pitch, please connect with the companies directly in order to get detailed information. For you as attendees, we do ask that you share ideas and your feedback with our presenters, including leads, possibly funding after due diligence, referral of someone with unique applicable expertise, or maybe even a potential strategic relationship. You can find their contact info on the chat board. With respect, we might refrain from giving management advice unless we are truly experts in a particular company's field. And don't treat them as marketing targets for services, please. Some housekeeping matters. You will note a red Reconnect tab at the top of your screen. If you lose audio, just click it and you will be reconnected. In the event there are technical problems, we may hit the restart, in which case there is no action required by you, as the system will automatically reconnect everyone. The chat board will be utilized to ask serious questions. Please be clear as to whom your question is being addressed. We will try to get to them. Each company will have a 6-minute presentation with their PowerPoint. When you see my face appear, the company has about 15 seconds to wrap up. After all companies have presented, we will move to a panel discussion with Q&A, today moderated by yours truly. So today we have 3 presenters, all founders or co-founders. First up, we will have Rita Hansen, CEO of OnBoard Dynamics, nominated by Portland Seed Fund and the Take Stock Investor Forum. Portland is coming, Rita is coming to us from Bend, Oregon. We have Robert Tasker, CEO of Transrail Innovation Group, nominated by Katarna Capital Corporation, and here in Calgary, not too far from me. We also have Michael Price, CEO of RHT RailHaul Technologies, also nominated by Katarna Capital Corporation, and also here in Calgary. And of course, with Michael, it's good to have you back. We had you at PDAC in Toronto. It was good to have you there. So let's start today with Rita Hansen. Rita is an industrial engineer by training and has over 30 years of executive and technical management experience in a diverse range of industries. Since 2006, she has specialized in startup and early stage phase environments, emphasizing opportunities in the energy arena. Rita, thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and to the CSE for inviting OnBoard Dynamics to this inaugural event, this first of its kind. So I'm quite honored to be here. As Mark has indicated, I am Rita, the CEO and co-founder of OnBoard Dynamics, and we are based here in Bend, Oregon. I was actually first exposed to this technology about 7 years ago when it was being originally incubated at Oregon State University here at the Cascades Division. Together with my 2 other co-founders, we spun it out from the university and then secured funding from ARPA-E, the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Energy. And our objective was to develop natural gas compression technology that would solve a critical lack of refueling infrastructure for natural gas vehicles here in North America. So transportation is a critical part of growing the world's economy, but also has the fastest growing emissions. It currently accounts for 24% of all CO2 emissions globally. While electric vehicles have made inroads with light duty, electrification of medium and heavy duty is still, for many applications like waste hauling, not a technology ready available to deploy. Compressed natural gas still makes a lot of sense, and especially here in the US with the advent of renewable natural gas, and some places up in Canada as well. Renewable natural gas can be carbon negative, but the challenge for driving adoption here in North America for natural gas vehicles has always been the critical lack of refueling infrastructure, which is what ARPA-E funded us to solve. So we are a company that actually is developing a tool that allows us to move and use natural gas. It needs to be either compressed or liquefied, and our technology puts the C in CNG, whether it is conventional geologic based or from a renewable source. We have developed this unique, intelligent, and cost-effective compression solution, allowing a low pressure natural gas source to be compressed up to 3,600 psi, all integrated within an engine platform. Our first product to market shown here is the GoFlow CNG 80 natural gas compressor, and it was commercially launched in late 2018. So a little bit of under the hood, the core compressor platform is based on a V8 industrial engine whereby 4 stages of compression are performed by one bank and powered by natural gas using the other bank. No electricity required. It runs on natural gas to compress natural gas. Our newest product, which is being launched next week, is called the GoFill Refueler. It is a standalone trailer that incorporates a dryer and a dispensing system for refueling up to 4 vehicles at the same time. And this is a product that was totally driven by customer demand. And together with the GoFlow, it becomes a complete natural gas vehicle refueling station, all without electricity and mobile if required. So we have generated a robust IP portfolio, and this year entered the national phase in Canada and elsewhere. This is a list of all of our applications and uses, which I'm not going to read through, but I just wanted to point out that every day we have customers approaching us for another application where they see good use, good implementation with the GoFlow. So the ability to compress the way we do gives us a key competitive advantage, which focuses on not requiring electricity, being driven by natural gas, and offering the system in a small packaged footprint with the ability to be mobile. As you can see, across the board in the refueling industry, it's really dominated by large stationary electric driven compressors. They truly are the incumbent in the marketplace. So the way we do what we do in compression brings us many opportunities where that is important, and is opening up even larger markets beyond natural gas refueling and utility operations where we're currently deployed today, which is shown here on the left. As part of our exciting product roadmap going forward, we're going to be incorporating cleaning and conditioning capabilities, which will allow us to go after many other applications over the next 3 years. I'm just going to highlight a couple of our current customers. You see here an independent waste hauler, also a national waste hauler, and a natural gas utility. And here's some additional pictures from our deployments. So we make money today by direct sales, but also through project installations and system integration. But we are also now experiencing recurring revenue streams such as leasing, compression as a service, service and support contracts, and other cloud-based data management offerings, which is completely built into our product. We've received significant U.S. and international interest across all 4 different verticals that I have mentioned. And our initial go-to-market strategy, though, has been focused here in the U.S., and we're entering Canada next through a partnership with Natural Resources Canada. So we're super excited about that project that's going to be happening with Fortis BC. We've been able to generate over $1.5 million in revenue since our product launch, and we have built out a pretty good sales pipeline. We are an essential business, and we've had to figure out how to keep our customers up and running during these past few months. But we're super excited about our new features that are coming online and our new products that we're introducing over the next 1.5 to 2 years. So with COVID-19, we are taking it week by week at the moment and continuously adjusting based on our customer conversations. But we know our technology can help reduce fueling costs, emissions, and tackle other critical applications in vertical markets like pipeline evacuations and other natural gas industry applications. So I like to tell people we're the seasoned veteran management team behind this company with combined business and technology expertise who've really demonstrated over the years how to execute. And I know this is not an investor presentation, but I just wanted to illustrate this is what a 7-year path looks like for a clean tech hardware company like ours. And as you can see, we're right here between the bridge and Series A stages of our company growth. And I see that Mark is online, and so that's my cue to tell you that the time is right. Let's transition together, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Rita. And now, Robert Tasker. Prior to Transrail Innovation Group, TRIG for short, Rob spent 7 years running a not-for-profit technology incubator called TR Technologies. Rob has spent most of his career in telecommunications, working for Bell Canada, BCTEL, and as a senior vice president at TELUS Communications. Rob, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. So let's talk about who we are. TRIG is a technology company. We build products and services exclusively for the rail industry. We are the only electronics company in North America that is certified to do what we do. We are based in Calgary, Alberta, incorporated in 2014 and privately owned. We were created through an investment of 3 different companies and the principals of those companies. First, it was TR Tech, a technology incubator that I used to run until 2016 that incubated TRIG. TR Tech had a foundational technology expertise in both electromagnetics and radar and wireless technologies. Another founder is Simba Transloading, which is run by Marvin Trimble, who has over 30 years of rail car transloading experience. Marvin identified the industry problem that we're addressing, which is visibility inside rail tank cars. And third, Peter Stunden of PGM2M, an industrial IoT company that offers sensors and sensor management services. It has certainly been a long commercialization journey to get where we are now. The rail industry does represent a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's extremely risk-averse and slow to change. It took 3 years from 2014 to 17 just to certify our technology to mount on rail tank cars. On the other hand, our patience, our relentless focus on the rail has now positioned TRIG as a very credible and respected player in the industry. And we occupy a very unique position as the only company in North America building electronics that have visibility inside a rail tank car. So what's the problem? Rail tank car transloaders have a very limited visibility inside the tank car. These tank cars typically transport dangerous goods such as petroleum products and chemicals. The challenge with visibility means that when a tank car arrives at a transloading station, the amount of residual product or heel inside the tank car is unknown. This is important as the risk of overfilling a tank car comes with extreme penalties from the rail carriers such as CN and CP. The current industry solution is essentially to open the manway and dip the car with a long pole. It can be quite hazardous for workers. They're exposed to toxic fumes. Not only is it unsafe, but quite time-consuming and also inaccurate. The current, where am I on my thing here? Sorry. The current industry, there are mechanical gauges and level probes, but they have a high failure rate and have many reliability and calibration problems. The bottom line is that rail tank cars have a chronic underfill problem of between 2 and 5%. This inefficiency is significant to an industry where, aside from the monopoly carriers, margins are extremely thin. If a shipper can load 2% more in every single tank car, their transportation costs are reduced by the same amount. So let's talk about our solution. So the answer is to optimize loading without opening the tank car. TRIG has built a radar sensor that provides visibility inside the car. The key benefits being it's a non-contact sensor that does not get damaged by the commodity itself. It has an accuracy of better than plus or minus 1%. And being digital, it allows for automated linkage to a control system. And essentially, it enables a fully closed loop system, which saves time, money, and people. This is not a totally novel technology, but given the extreme regulations of the rail industry, we are the first and only company certified to build and mount this technology on rail cars. TRIG has two primary products. First, the X-Load, a radar sensor that mounts permanently on a rail tank car and travels with the tank car. The price at volume is $1,000 US per sensor. It's targeted primarily at shippers who operate tank cars and are interested in optimizing their rail car fleet. There are about 500,000 tank cars across North America, and the ROI for a shipper for just a 2% fill improvement is less than 1 year. The second product is the T-Load, which is a sensor that actually stays in the terminal and is mounted temporarily on the tank car during the loading process. You can see a picture of the product. It's mounted to the vent line during transloading and is able to measure the product inside the car while keeping the system completely sealed. The product is targeted at terminal operators, and the pricing for the T-Load is $10,000 US per loading station. There are approximately 50,000 loading stations across North America. So between the X-Load and the T-Load, the addressable market's over $1 billion just for the product side. We are also finding that we're getting some great market traction with consulting services. Because we're bringing a unique capability to the market, it's opening up a conversation with our prospective clients for the broader opportunity of process optimization, automation, and remote controls. So far, our revenues are about evenly split between our product revenue and service revenue. So as far as commercialization, it's important to understand that the culture of the industry, our market is made up of very large multi-billion-dollar companies like Dow Chemical. This industry is highly regulated, very risk adverse, and as a result, quite slow to adopt new technology. But while this is a challenge, it's also a long-term benefit. The rail industry has only a handful of trusted suppliers across the whole North American market, and we are quickly becoming one of them. We made our first commercial offer in 2017, and by 2019, the revenue was still only about $20,000, as we were essentially running pilots and customer evaluations. In 2020, this year, our revenue will be over $500,000 with some very prestigious strategic clients like Valero and Dow Chemical. In 2020, our non-dilutive grant funding will be about $1 million, and with annual SG&A and COGS of about 1.5, the quick math shows that we do not require any further shareholder investment this year for the first time. Looking forward over the next 3 years, this is what we see. Revenues of about 2 to 3 million, grant funding of about the same, and the capital investment or new investment opportunity is between $1 and $2 million. So thank you for I think I'm well ahead of my time. I must have talked too fast.
You did very well. Thank you very much, Rob. And our last presenter, Michael Price. In the last 15 years, Michael has had leadership roles in the oil and gas industry in Alberta, oil sands companies Meg and Husky, and then in a global role with Worley. He was the CEO at Westfab, a Calgary steel fabrication and assembly company, and then had an industrial engagement with IBM. I might also point out that prior to all of those, he actually ran a hardwood sawmill. Of course, I am envious. I love the smell of beautiful sawdust. And I'm guessing that that was the time when you realized that not being able to load 15 rail cars of standard 2x4 lumber was a challenge. Anyway, Michael, over to you. Glad to have you back.
Thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate it. Appreciate being here. And I have to say, very inspired by both Rita and Rob and their path to bring physical technology to commercialization. Very impressive. And I'll be in touch with you in the future to get some lessons learned. So as the presentation says in front of you, RailHaul, when people think of rail or haul, and certainly Rob mentioned it, they think of big trains, big companies. That's not us. Depending on how old you are, when someone says rail or rail haul, rail haulage, you're probably thinking of one of these things. That is just not us, but we think we can. We do not compete and do not want to compete with the mainline rail companies. We want to complement them and help feed their main lines and even their secondary lines. Why rail? Why now? We'll get to that in a second. But first, this is what we are, or this is a version of what we are. This image you see here is of a non-crushed ore haulage vehicle. It is self-powered. You can see a power unit on the front. Our initial vehicle design, the one we worked on for quite some time, was diesel powered with a diesel power generator on both ends, standard locomotive truck sets underneath, a lot of standard gear. The interesting thing about technology is that the most innovative parts of it is when you can use other people's technology, tried, tested, and proven technology. And our principle, one of our principles of our company, is we use off-the-shelf components that the rail industry is familiar with, that industrial operators are familiar with. And we integrate them, including the systems, to provide an alternative haulage means for a variety of industries. Our primary industry or initial industry use case is for mining. And probably everyone on this call would know that commodity prices have been low for a long time. When they're high, they're volatile. There's huge challenge to get the price of moving materials down. It can be, in some cases, 25 to 50% of the cost of a mine. And of course, there's a huge pressure to get greenhouse gas emissions down. That's what we do. We provide an alternative. So right now, the primary way to move ore and concentrate is heavy haul mine truck and the roads, huge roads associated, or very large, complex, expensive conveyor systems. You can also use, I should add, concentrate, slurry lines, and so forth. But these are very expensive to implement, to operate. They tend to be short life assets in a lot of respects in comparison to an alternative, which is rail. And we are bringing really a lot of elements of older technology, combining them with some smart sensing and semi-autonomous systems and communication systems to provide an alternative to heavy haul mine trucks and conveyor systems. Easily 25 to 50% lower total installed cost. That means not just for the vehicle, but also for the infrastructure and communication systems associated with it. Lower operating costs and significantly lower greenhouse gases. And this was our pivot moment about 3 to 4 months ago. We were at actually the last conference to occur in person in Canada, I think, the mine conference in Toronto in the first week of March. And we talked to 60 different mining companies. We were there to validate our technology, of course, but also to learn from our clients. And they said, every one of them said, electrification, and what's your path to get us to electrification? They were highly focused on that. And so that's what we did. We've actually reimagined our vehicle from all diesel to a battery-dominant hybrid electric. One end is a skidded power package. It could be diesel, it could be compressed natural gas, it could be a micro turbine, whatever's off the shelf and the client is favorable to. At the other end of the vehicle is a power pack, high capacity, high wattage power pack, and that provides us with multiple use cases. Rob's point about the rail industry being conservative goes right along with the mining industry. So our biggest challenge has been to get people to think differently about their haulage. Rather than them ask us, what does your vehicle look like and what does it haul? How much does it haul? We ask them, what would be the optimum haulage for your operation? So we've started to engage with clients around what we would configure for them. We don't have big, long assembly lines building these vehicles. These are long life assets. We can build these vehicles quite simply. The components are packaged by the specialty firms that package them, and we bring them together for a specific use case. We're working with 2 Canadian mining companies. One, we're using use cases outside of the country, and the other, we're using use case inside the country, and mine inside the country. And that company is owned by an Australian global player. What we're finding is even on a long haul route like this one, which was 80 kilometers long with a very low volume of haulage, we were saving 15% operating costs and 26% in greenhouse gas emissions by that hybrid diesel design. That same vehicle could then backhaul the tanker car with the fuel supply from the port to the mill. And time's almost up, I see. And we would be certainly looking to use some other technologies to make sure those tankers are full. So our flight path is we're on the early stage pre-commercialization. We are about to sign a couple studies, paid studies with 2 mining companies, which will lead to proof of concepts, which will lead to our first physical pilot project being built, hopefully in early 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And now if we can bring all of our panelists back for the Inquisition. So, well done, all 3 of you. The first question, I want to go back to the beginning, and it's a little different for each of you. And that is, how long have you been aware of the pain point your technology solved? What was the inspiration for the solution? And tell all of us about the first moves you made, how you built your team and those kinds of things. So why don't we start with you, Rita?
Yeah, so going back to, I was first exposed to natural gas as a transportation fuel, the challenges around it, especially in this country. I had traveled the world, up until that point, and so I was aware of natural gas as a transportation fuel, but I had no idea how, because it was so prevalent elsewhere in countries like India or South America, and so I was not exposed to what the challenges were around the infrastructure, the refueling infrastructure, and the classic chicken and egg around it until I was introduced to the professor at Oregon State University. So that was really my introduction into, wow, this is, I'd never thought through that. And actually so much of my job right now is educating the public around, the virtues. So that was my awareness, and the solution that the professor had was quite unique. He was actually thinking of, if you recall, Mark, was integrating the compression on board the vehicle. So therefore the vehicle would be like not an EV that you could plug in, but an NGV that you could plumb in to your barbecue line. That was the great sexy idea. So the pain point was there, but how to solve it required some pivoting. So I'll leave it at that, but that's, listening to customers. I was just, listening to Mike talk about how you went to a conference and talked to, these customers. That is like so critical to the success of a startup, that you've done that customer discovery work.
Yes, indeed.
Take it, Michael.
Oh, okay, thank you. I've been in the natural resource sector my entire career, including, as you pointed out, my early days in owning a hardwood sawmill. Realized pretty quickly I wanted to get into energy, went into the coal business for a while and realized I wanted something a little newer, so I went into oil sands. Through it all, one of the biggest challenges is moving product. And being able to, yes, it's great, everyone builds big, expensive projects, but that takes 3 to 5 to 7 years to build a multi-billion-dollar project. And after that, 25, 40 years, it's all about operating cost. So our just a fundamental understanding from an industrial background around that issue is a movement of material and keeping your OPEX down. I was very fortunate. I was working on a couple other, supporting a couple other startups when I was introduced to the innovator that came up with the RailHaul foundational technology ideas. And we met and talked, and there he liked to tinker and knew everything about rail. And I don't like to tinker so much as like to take something and move it to market. So we hit it off quite well. I think the aha moment was when I first met him. I actually right away called a half dozen executives of resource companies and asked them, just touch base. How's your materials movement area going? How's your OPEX? Are you happy with those heavy haul mine trucks? And it was a pretty resounding, gosh, we would sure love an alternative. And why don't you bring it forward? So that's what we've been doing. And then the next aha moment was very much around electrification. That's really come on strong in the last year and a half, even the last 6 months. The focus, I don't know if it's COVID and people had time to start contemplating things, or all the fracking companies going out of business, I don't know what it is, but boy, the push we've gotten from clients directly for electrification has been pretty impressive. Thanks.
So yeah, from my perspective, before I was running TRIG, I was running a technology incubator, as I mentioned, and we were actually looking to commercialize some technology, which would be the intersection between the oil and gas industry and information technology. We knew there was tons of opportunities there, and we were looking for one. And then through some contacts, Marvin Trimble came along and said, well, we got a problem in the rail industry. Particularly, they were using it for crude by rail as a main, which is very viscous material. And you read that there's very large heel or residual product inside the car. And so knowing what the heel is, it was a real problem. They didn't have visibility inside the car. So it seemed like a pretty basic problem that was not being solved. And so we went out to solve the problem. And the fortunate thing was we were able to kind of gather the team and slowly build a team inside the incubator for a couple of years. So that's how we got started.
That's good. And, I forgot to mention 2 rail technology companies. The CEO of CSE loves rail. It's not just Henry Katarna who loves rail.
Excellent.
Richard Carleton loves rail as well. You get those 2 together and the subject matter is going to come up. So for each of you, when there's an invention, and you're working with customers, there's usually a significant roadblock you come up at some point. And if you don't pivot, you at least need to redirect. So talk about this in respect to your technology and how you realize the need to shift. And 2 of you have mentioned customers, but also you've got your team on board. They've bought into one target, one direction. And talk to us about the process of redirecting your team. Once you've got them climbing one hill and you say, you know what, we've got to go climb the hill right next door. So talk to us about that. Why don't we start with you, Rob?
Sure. Yeah, the big learning for us when we started this was really how regulated and how slow the rail industry is. I mean, it is just painstaking. We knew we were all alone and that, but we realized that selling the onboard version of our product, the what's called the X-Load, the one that mounts on the car, was a much longer sales cycle than we had the ability to go after. So we created the T-Load as a different in-terminal. And what happened in that period of time is the technology changed and allowed for the technology to see through the vent line. And so it was interesting that we were quite fortunate that the technology had evolved to a point where we could apply it in a different way. And no issue with the team coming on board. I've a very small team, and they're all very aware and participants of the strategy and our financial situation, everything else. So getting people on the board to buy into our pivot was not hard at all.
Rita?
Well,
Yeah, that's we've been at it for 7 years, so you can imagine that it's not just been one change in direction or new mountain to climb. There's been a couple, more than a couple, but it's always as long as your team, we've been, we've all worked together now for quite some time. So that's, and it's a lot of seasoned, I joke about, the grays. If you could see the gray hair, you would see the gray hair on everybody on my team. So we've been at this for a while. And so having a seasoned veteran business and technology team really helps in that regard, and it's just, really paying particular attention to the voice of the customer. Natural gas is, there's some headwinds associated with that. And, as Mike was talking about, the trend to want to electrify everything. I'm a believer in engineer by training. We need a transition plan to get from here to there, and really it's not all one solution. It's not going to be all one solution, and it's certainly not going to be all one solution for the entire world around, how do we drive down emissions. So we've just been really lucky that we've developed a a technology platform that is almost like developing a hammer. That now, yes, we were focused on that one quadrant because that's what launched us, was the natural gas vehicle refueling market. But then the next thing you know, the utility operations are approaching us, and then the next thing you know is oil and gas, and just moving and using and transporting of natural gas, and making sure that you're mitigating all the emissions, you're addressing all the points of leakage, that you are really using this fuel source in the most responsible manner. But also recognizing that, you know, there's a, you know, we know we have some objectives to get to by 2050, 2070. And so how do we best use this fuel source in the most responsible way possible? And that's what I believe in what we're doing. And I'm just amazed at our customers who are telling us, here's what we need to do to your platform in order to best use it to address these problems. So, and if you got a team that's mature, and you're, as you know me, Mark, I'm like, you know, communication, transparency and communication. That's the most important thing to keep your team with you every step of the way.
I would segue right into Rita, your comments about how to use that energy and do the transition. We had a really interesting call with the Conference Board of Canada board or members of a month ago around the issue of remote communities and getting them off of diesel. And so a transition to renewables would include your technology. Some of them actually have potential supplies of gas, but there's no way to actually get it to the community, right? So you can imagine, you know, we're looking for use cases about to have some further conversations with several provinces in the Fed around let's identify 2 or 3 remote communities that would really benefit from having a freight access, so they're not paying $10 a jug of milk, unlock some stranded assets, maybe gas, and or say the mine that's in the area, rather than a heavy haul road that would be much bigger. So it's, you know, those being able to come together with partners is, I think, what my team's quite good at. My team has actually, 3 of them have worked together before on Rail Power, which was the first hybrid locomotive, shunting locomotive in the world. So the challenge has been for me to get up to speed on rail, and not so much the challenge of them accepting new ideas. So they've spent a lot of effort in the last decade on the technology, and just don't have that interest to kind of go out and take it to market. So they rely on me to do that, but I am on a very steep learning curve. And what we do is we bring partners together. We see ourselves more as a platform to and an ecosystem of enabling technologies and partners, each doing their specialization. So, you know, we're going to mention as an example to one of our mining company use cases here next week, an enhancement on our backhaul of our tanker. Let's make it a backhaul that's full. So, and that same mining company is running a massive mill, 100% on diesel. And so wouldn't it be interesting to unlock some gas resources in that jurisdiction and rail it over to the site? So it, you know, that kind of collaboration is what our team is good at, and what we look for partnering with others to do as well.
Well, and Mike, we need to get together afterwards, because I can tell you about a project we're working on in Alaska to do exactly what you're talking about. Not using rail though, but using tube trailers to go about 50 miles between the natural gas source and the community, and trying to provide them with a fuel source to switch from diesel to natural gas with their microturbines to generate electricity. So we're super excited about those kinds of opportunities. So
yeah,
and our moderator has left the room, but yeah, maybe he's there. We can just have this conversation.
Sorry about that. My computer suddenly started something it's never done before, and it shut down.
Rita, we will definitely talk afterwards. There's another use case in Alaska that's about 200 miles long that involves 5 mines, that would also be a really interesting utilization of your and our technology for sure.
Awesome.
So I gather you guys have come up with new ideas while I've been away, in the short time
Indeed.
I've been away.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about next milestone for each of you. Michael, do you want to tell us what the next, or two milestones, and what do you need to achieve that milestone?
Right. So unlike Rita and Rob, we don't have a physical product built yet. So we have just finished the conceptual design and are about to pull the trigger on the detailed design for our prototype that is designed for everybody and nobody. So by that, I mean, you know, it's based on a generic use case, relatively flat land haul from ore pit to mill. And that, when we pull the trigger on that, we of course have to make sure we've got the right sponsorship behind it and the dollars to finish it. It'll be mostly founder and a little bit of, I'll call it sponsor, and we've got some fans, if you will, that have been waiting for us to pull the trigger so that they can invest a little bit on seed and have options for the actual main capital raise. That's our main project that we're working on. But in the meantime, as Rita and Rob both know, you got to be highly engaged with clients and let them know what you're doing, when it's going to be available, get their input. Ideally, that same prototype would actually be designed. We'd switch from a generic design to a design for company A or company B or company A and B. So it's their prototype. And our approach is we do a conceptual study, which we've done for two mining companies, two different mines. We go to a paid study with them based on that, which then validates the business case to do a proof of concept, which is we design a physical vehicle to their specification that would be used for their use case. We run that on a private track and simulate it, third-party engineer auditing. That then creates a business case for the proof of value, which might be the 4 or 6 units that they need for their pit, and hopefully deploy, you know, throughout all their mines one day. So that's where we're heading. The big challenge is just to get the prototype funding in place. We don't want to go to private equity. We don't really want to do a formal capital raise. We're still at the friends and family and founders stage, and then go from there. And we know we can build it. We've just actually secured the folks that are going to do the detail engineering. We also need to make sure that the two companies we are hoping, one's in BC, one's in Alberta. We haven't located the one in Ontario yet, but we want a builder in each of those 3 provinces so that use cases in those provinces would be built in those provinces. That's where we're standing.
Okay. Rob?
Yeah, our next, we've been working for a few years now, courting the largest industry player who builds tank cars, named Trinity Rail down in Dallas. And they're like the GM of rail. They make over half the tank cars. And certainly having a partnership like that there, and they're building what's called the connected tank car. So really they're ahead of any of the other big manufacturers. And so a partnership, we're the only people doing what we do, and they're the only people in the industry that are trying to make progress. So our partnership has been growing, and it will be. So getting that solidified down to working on some very specific projects together will be a really important milestone. The next big opportunity for us is what's called LPGs, liquid petroleum gases, and we're certified for general purpose tank cars. Pressure cars have even a bigger problem because you can't open them. Even if you want to dip them, you couldn't, because you can't open them. And so they have a real heel problem in those. And so more regulatory stuff for us, but there's a huge opportunity. And all our customers are saying the same thing. Like, if you can do it for LPGs, you know, we'll be all over this. So that's kind of where we are. Rita?
Yeah.
Sure. Boy, it's like being the CEO of a 7-year-old startup or early phase company, or whatever you want to call us. It's always be fundraising. So, you know, we just were tapped by ARPA-E that we were a semi-finalist of the for the scale up opportunity. So they're targeting former ARPA-E awardees and current ones that have established a reputation for execution, and how can they help us scale up. So we're super excited that we are a semifinalist, and we're looking for commercial and financing partners for a big chunk of funding in order to really take our core platform technology and move it into some of these other applications and verticals that I had talked about in my presentation. So we are all heads down, really doing the work to figure out who can come to the table. It's really a great opportunity. So shout out to anyone that is interested in either being a commercial partner and or a financial partner for 20% cost share requirement that we're going to have to satisfy in order to receive that funding to scale us up. So we just feel really blessed that we are part of the ARPA-E family. And it's just like you, it's traction and it's funding. It's traction and it's working capital. It's traction, traction, traction. Sales, sales, sales. And so that, it's sort of, if you're not thinking and worrying about one, you're thinking and worrying about the other. So that's kind of where we are in our particular, as you know, Mark, you followed our story. It's sort of, we're right at that point. Of course, the perfect storm would have to strike in 2020 with the Russian-Saudi oil wars and COVID-19. So, the best thing we can be doing is just demonstrate our capability for bootstrapping until we can really clear one of these big hurdles or opportunities actually that's in front of us.
Very good. Well, the three of you, I think we've had a great session. We're just a little past the 45-minute mark. So we want to say thank you to our presenters, Rita Hansen, OnBoard Dynamics, Rob Tasker, CEO of Transrail Innovation, Michael Price, CEO of RHT RailHaul Technologies. And thank you to James, to you, our attendees. Thank you for your time today. Do go to the company websites and learn more about these companies, and you can see the information there on the screen. If you have a lead for them, let them know. And come back next week for non-invasive medical devices, Kent Imaging, Forest Devices, and AutoNexus. Mark Francis and CSE Tech Tuesdays signing out until next week. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you, Mark. Thanks, CS.
Thanks, Mark.
CSE.
Nice to meet you, Rita and Mike.
You too. Be in touch.
Okay.